Oh my God. Sophie's a dog. She just is she's a competitor. She's versatile, so she allows us to do different things. Like she plays with such toughness. She's huge and she's going to be for us all season long.
The WNBA thought a $400 fine would silence Sophie Cunningham, but instead, it lit a firestorm. One bold move during a heated game not only shifted the entire league's narrative, but turned Cunningham into a viral sensation and an overnight millionaire. This wasn't a typical foul or a routine game. It was a line in the sand. How did this minor penalty turn into a million-dollar moment? And why are fans calling her the WNBA's first real enforcer? This isn't just a story about a technical call. It's about a rising rebellion inside women's basketball.
This is what happens, right? This is what happens. You've got competitive women who are the best in the world at what they do, right? And when you allow them to play physical and you allow these things to happen, they're going to compete. And they're going to have their teammates back.
From the moment Caitlin Clark stepped into the WNBA, she wasn't just a rookie. She was the headline act, a once-in-a-generation player who brought unmatched energy to the league. With record-breaking viewership, sold-out arenas, and a $28 million Nike deal, she became the face of the WNBA overnight. But beneath the surface of hype and endorsement deals was a disturbing pattern. Clark was being physically targeted more than any other player. In 2024 alone, she absorbed 17% of all egregious fouls league-wide, despite playing fewer games than most veterans. That's not just intense, that's unheard of. Still, officials rarely stepped in. It didn't go unnoticed, and fans were getting angrier by the game. The problem only worsened in 2025. Clark was still getting slammed on a nightly basis, sometimes subtly, sometimes aggressively. Names like Dijonai Carrington and Kennedy Carter became regulars in highlight reels for the wrong reasons. Body checks, eye pokes, shoulder shoves, it became a disturbing routine. But what was more shocking was the response. Nothing. The referees remained silent, the league avoided the conversation, and Clark was left without any real protection. The message to fans and players alike was loud and clear. Clark was on her own. And while she kept delivering performances, fans, analysts, and even coaches began to wonder, how long would it be before someone finally said, "Enough is enough" by the game? The Connecticut Sun game that changed everything. June 17, 2025. The Indiana Fever faced off against the Connecticut Sun in a game that would ultimately be remembered for all the wrong reasons. The scoreboard read 88-71 in favor of the Fever, but that number became irrelevant in the chaos that unfolded in the final minute. J.C. Sheldon poked Clark in the eye, an act eerily similar to Carrington's infamous incident from the previous season. As if that weren't enough, Marina Mabrey shoved Clark to the ground. The response from officials? Minimal. A couple of technicals, a flagrant one, and business as usual. But someone in a Fever jersey had seen enough, and she wasn't going to stay quiet. Sophie Cunningham didn't wait for a press conference. She didn't write a tweet. She acted in real time in front of millions. With just 46 seconds on the clock, Cunningham took matters into her own hands. She threw Sheldon to the floor and dragged Mabrey to the ground like a veteran enforcing a code. The bench cleared. Fans roared. The internet detonated. Sophie wasn't just protecting her teammate, she was making a statement on behalf of everyone who had watched Clark get bullied with no consequences. Her message was clear. If the referees won't protect Clark, someone else will. The WNBA acted swiftly and predictably. They fined Cunningham $400, a slap on the wrist by league standards, and possibly added more penalties behind closed doors. But what happened next stunned everyone. That tiny fine transformed into the launchpad of a marketing juggernaut. Cunningham's TikTok following exploded from 400,000 to 1.2 million in just 48 hours. Her Instagram doubled. Her number 8 Fever jersey? Gone. Completely sold out within days. This wasn't just fallout from a foul. This was a brand in the making. According to digital marketing firms, Cunningham's social media surge would have cost any corporation over $1 million to manufacture through traditional marketing. But Sophie did it with a foul and a fearless stance. Endorsement deals came flooding in. Existing partnerships doubled in value. Instead of retreating from the spotlight, Sophie leaned in, using every repost, every meme, every viral clip to her advantage. She didn't just go viral. She took control of the moment. All of this begs the question, how did the WNBA allow this to happen? The same league reportedly dealing with a $40 million budget shortfall had failed to protect its biggest asset. During Clark's brief absence in June, viewership dropped by 55%. Ticket sales fell by nearly a third. The writing was on the wall, but instead of protecting Clark, they targeted the one teammate who stepped up to shield her. This wasn't a one-off issue. Players like Alyssa Thomas, Jonquel Jones, and Kennedy Carter had delivered their share of brutal fouls on Clark without serious consequences. Carter's infamous body check from 2024, reviewed and upgraded, but no suspension. The problem wasn't just missed calls, it was a deeply rooted cultural issue, one that Cunningham shattered with a single act of defiance. In the days following the incident, Sophie Cunningham wasn't vilified, she was celebrated. Posts on X labeled her a national treasure. Sports analysts praised her fearlessness. Fans began creating tribute content, dubbing her the enforcer the WNBA never knew it needed. She went from being a solid role player to a folk hero overnight. Cunningham became a walking symbol of what the league had failed to do: stand up for its most valuable player. What fans discovered next only fueled her legend. Sophie wasn't just tough, she was trained to be. She earned a black belt in Taekwondo by age 6. Her grit and combativeness weren't just emotional, they were technical. That background helped build the player and the enforcer we now see on the court. Sophie didn't just react, she responded like someone who was always ready. Even Las Vegas Aces coach Becky Hammon added her voice to the controversy. She criticized the excessive grabbing, pushing, and uncalled fouls that had become common in the league. Her exact words? "If you let them play like this, it's going to get ugly. People are sick of getting hit." Hammon wasn't wrong. Sophie didn't disrupt the game's integrity. She revealed how far it had already slipped. For a league trying desperately to grow its fan base and secure better media deals, this was a disaster. On one hand, they promoted Clark as the future of the sport. On the other, they let her get battered on national television. That contradiction wasn't just confusing, it was infuriating. Sophie's foul didn't just spark controversy, it exposed hypocrisy. In terms of impact, Caitlin Clark was unmatched. Her games averaged nearly 10 million viewers. She helped sell out 90% of Fever home games. When she missed time, viewership crashed. Ticket sales dried up. She wasn't just a rookie, she was the WNBA's economy. And the league's failure to keep her safe risked more than just her health, it threatened their entire future. The league's refusal to speak out or take action spoke volumes. No public statements, no disciplinary consistency, no real accountability. And through it all, Clark kept showing up, playing, producing, leading. Cunningham's response, though aggressive, became the loudest call for justice the league had seen. And for once, fans weren't calling it dirty. They were calling it necessary. Not everyone approved, of course. Nearly 400 fans signed a petition demanding Sophie's suspension, but their outrage only fueled her rise. Within 48 hours, she went from the headlines of local sports to trending globally. What began as a heated moment became a career-defining one. Sophie had done what no press release or rule change could. She started a movement. Cunningham's merch flew off shelves. Her face dominated social feeds. STN Digital confirmed what fans already knew. Sophie had become a brand. With Adidas and Quest Nutrition already circling, her market value skyrocketed. She was no longer just Clark's teammate. She was a standalone force, a lightning rod, a hero to some, a villain to others, but undeniably unforgettable. Sophie's greatest play wasn't the tackle, it was what came after. By protecting Clark, she allowed her star teammate to focus on basketball. No more worrying about blindsides, no more fear of retaliation. Clark could now focus on scoring, leading, and winning, all because Sophie had her back. Cunningham's actions carried a deeper warning. The WNBA can't afford to lose its biggest draw, not to injury, not to discouragement. Every ignored foul, every missed call, chips away at trust. Sophie's foul wasn't the breaking point, but it sure felt like the last warning shot. The $400 fine wasn't a punishment, it was the price of entry into sports legend. That one moment flipped the script. Instead of retreating, Sophie doubled down. She grew her fan base, signed new deals, and became one of the most talked about players in the league. The WNBA meant to discipline her. Instead, they minted a star. Sophie Cunningham's rise wasn't accidental. She didn't just protect Clark, she protected the future of the league. She exposed its blind spots, called out its contradictions, and stood up when no one else would. The league may have fined her, but fans rewarded her. She became the enforcer the WNBA didn't realize it desperately needed. What happened after the fine was nothing short of a media explosion. Sophie's highlight reel, especially the moment she grabbed Mabry, circulated on every major platform, from Twitter to TikTok to ESPN clips. The WNBA's official account tried to stay neutral, but fans hijacked every comment section, turning Sophie into both a symbol and a slogan. Overnight, hashtags like #ProtectClark and #SpicySophie trended in multiple countries. Even mainstream news outlets that rarely covered women's basketball picked up the story. For the first time in years, the league had everyone's attention, and it wasn't because of a buzzer beater. It was because a player finally broke the silence. As the dust settled, companies began crunching numbers. Sophie's social media value skyrocketed. Marketing agency projections revealed that her engagement rate had beaten out some NBA stars in the 72 hours after the incident. Her Fever jersey was not just sold out, it was being resold for 3 times the retail price online. Sponsored posts that previously earned her $10,000 suddenly jumped to $20,000 or more. Even media buyers admitted if the WNBA couldn't monetize this moment, they never would. While the league sat stunned, Sophie quietly built a business empire, fueled by a single foul that resonated with millions. What began as a reaction became a revolution. Cunningham didn't just defend a teammate, she exposed the silent crisis brewing in the WNBA. Fans were no longer willing to accept the status quo. Players were no longer afraid to speak out. Commentators were now pushing for official changes to how flagrant fouls are handled. And beneath it all was one undeniable truth. The WNBA can't afford to ignore players like Clark or allies like Cunningham. The future of the league might just depend on how it responds not just to stars, but to the ones who are willing to protect them. This was no longer about a $400 fine. This was about changing the league from the inside out. This wasn't just a game, it was a statement about loyalty, power, and standing up when others back down. Sophie Cunningham didn't just defend Caitlin Clark, she defended what the league claimed to stand for. And in doing so, she turned a moment of chaos into a movement of change. If you believe players should stand up for what's right, even when the league won't, hit that like button. Subscribe to BaskXpress for more stories they don't want you to hear. And drop a comment below. Did Sophie go too far, or was she exactly what this league needed?